I'm Katie. These are our two dogs, Avine and Eritrea. But this story isn't about you guys, but thank you for joining me. I believe it was back in 2001. I was getting established in my career as a veterinary technician in the state of Oregon. And one day, one of our clients brought in some goodies for us to thank us for doing something. So long ago, I don't remember who it was or what it was for, but thank you. This was so very kind of you. And these were treats that I was unused to clients bringing. I'm just out of college. I'm newly married. I'm still very much a kid. I was in my early 20s. And so the inclination to go for junk food was still very strong. And sugar, sugar, sugar. I knew to stay away from fat, but I didn't know yet how bad sugar was for me. So anytime anyone brought in a treat, especially since I didn't have very much money and I couldn't just go out and buy stuff that I felt like, it was amazing. And is this typically the attitude that you see in veterinary hospitals, I guess, regardless of the age people coming in? A client brings in a treat. It's amazing. Everyone is so super excited, no matter what it is. We are so excited to be blessed by that. And it's usually junk food, but this time it didn't come in the form that I was used to. It was a platter of beautiful, ripe, organic strawberries. And I was just starting to learn what the word organic was, so I had some good respect for this. And then there was a bag of cookies. This exact flavor, this exact brand. It is called Uncle Eddie's Vegan Chocolate Chip and Walnut Cookies. So this is about 16 years ago that I very first saw this bag of cookies. And what makes this stand out to me is I've always been a chocolate chip cookie lover. And my mom has made chocolate chips since I was really little, so I grew up with a homemade plus anything I could get store-bought. When I went to South Carolina for school, they had those huge monster cookie cakes I'm sure you're familiar with, and I fell in love with soft chocolate chip cookies. So I was leaning away from the crispy ones, and I really wanted the soft, gooey, still taste fresh chocolate chip cookies. But here's a problem with chocolate chip cookies that I was starting to have. I was building up an intolerance for sugar. My body was finally telling me, you have overdone it in the past and you really have got to cut back on this processed refined sugar. So, and also any that were really heavy on the butter. I would eat one or two cookies, my taste buds would be super happy, but I'd start to feel, it's not really sick to your stomach, but it's kind of the sickness that hits your head in a way. Almost sugar buzz, and so, I think that's all I can have. And I was having the same problem with pancakes. So my intolerance was really starting to rise up. My body was finally telling me, you can't act like you're 5 years old anymore. So that's what's so spectacular about these cookies. I took a bite, immediately fell in love. These are the best cookies I've ever had in my life. And thankfully, not everybody glommed on the cookies because this is a small bag. It wouldn't have lasted long enough for me to find out. I was able to have 3 cookies that day, and I didn't feel sick. So I was immediately intrigued. What makes these cookies so special? I'd never heard of vegan before. I didn't know what the word was. I thought it was part of their brand name. This was how ignorant I was to what veganism was back then. And at the time, I really wanted to become vegetarian. I desperately wanted to become vegetarian because I was not digesting meats. They would sit in my stomach like a rock. I felt horrible after eating them, and I wanted to stop. Thankfully, I met someone at the very same job who was Seventh-day Adventist, and she had been vegetarian all her life and helped me. So why, when I learned what the word vegan was, why didn't I take the step all the way into veganism at that time in my life? Why did I just go vegetarian? It's because when I saw the name vegan and I wanted to know more about these cookies because I wanted to get some more, I asked, what is vegan? And the person who answered me was not vegan. At the time, I was not, at the time I would say I was not yet wise enough with enough knowledge to know, don't ask somebody who is not an expert in the field about the field. So if you want advice on your finances, don't ask your broke neighbor. Don't ask your broke father. Ask an expert in the field. I didn't do that. So the first person I asked was a fellow coworker, what is vegan? And they told me, oh, well, it's somebody who doesn't eat meat, cheese, milk, eggs. And I'm thinking, all right, well, that's kind of different, but I like some of that. Maybe you want to know more. And then they said, and they don't eat honey. What? Who doesn't eat honey? Now, I had grown up in Arizona where now the wild bees have taken over, but they still make mesquite honey, and it has a smoky, really intense flavor that's not at all like the really mild, super sweet clover honey. This honey, you could eat a big spoonful and not go, whoa. Same with the cookies. Not a big sugar overload. So I had grown up on that honey. It was so good to me. I treasured honey my whole life. And for somebody to say that vegans don't eat honey, I'm like, that is insane. Why wouldn't they eat honey? And the answer they gave to me, well, it was the best they knew, is because it's from animals. It's not from animals, it's from insects. I don't understand this. And I chalked it up to insanity. And then later on, when I was trying to learn more about organic and healthy eating, I thought to myself, that's not a sustainable way of life. You can't live without dairy and eggs. I didn't ask anybody. I just came to all these conclusions on my own with all the processing of my brain that I had received growing up. Is you have to have milk or your bones aren't going to be strong. You have to have eggs. They're great in protein and they'll make you have good muscles. And I thought, well, if I give up meat, I can still sustain myself on the dairy and the eggs and I'll be okay. I'll be getting enough nutrition and protein. That's all I knew. And I didn't know anybody who was vegan to ask them. I had my own bias already set in place because of how I was raised. And I'm not going to say that this is the fault of my parents. It's not. It's the fault of media and our culture. We've been raised to really believe these things. It's so saturated and we are so indoctrinated with it. For example, in America, we're taught that countries that eat this are vile and repulsive and horrible barbarians. But then we're told not to care about pigs and love bacon. What's the difference? They certainly don't feel any different or think any different about the process of being killed. So why do we have all these things programmed into us? You can't eat a cat, but you can eat a cow. That's just to tell you how my mind and my brain was trying to wrap around this and why I came to the conclusion I did. And I'm going to say it's my fault. Yes, I was ignorant. Yes, I had all this pre-programming in me. But at the same time, I was learning about organic. I hadn't been raised to know about that. I was learning about vegetarianism. I hadn't been raised to know that. I was finally getting out and being able to pursue my passion, which was taking care of animals in the veterinary field. Didn't know anything about that prior either, and I was learning so much and loving it. And then this one thing I set aside. I let my brain turn that off, and I can only say I feel ashamed about it, I'm sorry about it, but I can't go back and change it. I can only move forward from where I am now. I just wanted to let everybody else know how my brain was working and why that happens so much. We allow ourselves to be biased to things that we don't know anything about. And that's not a good excuse. Or we think that we know, and we don't. And that is the reason I became vegan this time around when it was reintroduced to me, because I decided if I'm going to do this, even if it's only for 30 days, I am going to do it with excellence, because how else am I going to know if it works for me or not? I'm having some health challenges now. I'm not immune like I used to be back in my 20s. I want to know if this makes a difference in my life, and I'm not going to know if I kind of half-heartedly do it. So I learned everything that I could. Probably lost a lot of sleep, staying up late doing research, but I wanted to follow credible sources and really learn every single aspect of this. What is veganism? What are the different reasons that people become vegan, etc. And back to the honey part. I am not going to address what honey is, why some vegans think that it's okay and others are very, very adamantly against it. You can research that for yourself and come to your own conclusion. But please do. But back then, there weren't that many alternatives to honey. I knew about agave syrup and I wasn't impressed with it already. I thought that it was a scam, and I'm still not impressed with it. But if somebody had told me in place of honey you could use maple syrup as much as you want, I would have been all over that. Had somebody told me that back then, that was a substitute for honey. And now we have things like Bee Free that are made from apples that are delicious, and this tastes and looks and has the same texture as honey. So if you don't want to consume honey, there's so many alternatives out there. So you don't have to deprive yourself, and that goes for anything. So if you're thinking about becoming vegan, the research is out there to show you how healthy it is for you, in contrast to consuming animal products. They cause inflammation and most of the diseases that we fight here today in America. So if you're worried about heart disease or stroke or diabetes or cancer, get off the animal products. The research is out there to show you how it works and why. And anything out there that someone says you can't have, there's a way of looking at it differently, okay? These are the most awesome cookies in the world, I think. I'm gonna stand by that. These are the most awesome cookies in the world. Anything that you think you can't have, there's a substitute for it. I guarantee it. Someone has already made a plant-based substitute for it. And think about it this way. You're already eating a ton of vegan foods. I don't know anybody personally who lives off of entirely meat, or entirely dairy, or entirely eggs, or all the three combined. I don't know anybody. They're always putting in some sort of seasoning, which is a plant, or having vegetables on the side, or a piece of fruit. You are eating vegan options without even thinking about it, because that's what we're designed to eat. That's what we naturally gravitate towards because they taste good. That's where the flavor really comes from. And so there are already things out there that you're eating that you love. Just add to them. Add to them. There is such an abundance out there that you haven't even tried, and it is incredible. You're always going to find some bum recipes, but most of it's really good. Did you guys like some cookies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mommy.
All right.
Oh, what?
Mommy's favorite.
My favorite cookie.
Cookie. And even though I'm raw vegan now, these are my first love. So if I have them once or twice a year, it's not going to be the end of the world. So if you're looking for these cookies yourself, you can usually always find them at Whole Foods. You just have to ask where they're keeping them, because they might keep them in the freezer section, the bread section, or the cookie section. It's different places for different stores. I've also seen them in natural grocers, not as big as a selection. And if you're in the Northwest, ask New Seasons if they're not already carrying them, and they will probably be able to special order them for you.
Nummy.
Yeah, nummy.
Yeah.
What do you think of them?
I think they're really, really, really good.
Me too.
Thank you.
I even like to eat them frozen.
Mommy.
All right. I'll just have one. Eat the one you already have. Yum.
Yum. How much do you want me?
I love you too.
But you like you a lot.
You're also talking with your mouth full.
And you never want to stop loving you. That's why we're not.
You know what? I'm never going to stop loving you, no matter what. Did you know that?
Mm-hmm.
That's good that you know that.